I wanted to take just a moment to introduce the V Foundation for Cancer Research for anyone who might not know of our organization. And then I'm going to spend most of my time doing what I think a chief scientific officer should do, and that is talking about the research that we fund, some of our researchers, because I hope that I might be able to encourage some of you to collaborate with some of our researchers, including the last speaker, who is someone we fund and are quite proud of. So I'm going to share some of their research, and that'll help explain the broad platform that the V Foundation funds. And then I'm going to loop back to how and why I think we should advance equity and innovation in cancer research. So the V Foundation is an organization that was founded 30 years ago by Jim Valvano in collaboration with ESPN. We fund research across the entire cancer patient experience. So we fund research from cancer prevention all the way to palliative care. We fund across all cancers, and we also fund across the entire scientific journey. So meaning we fund from basic or developmental science. We certainly fund research that moves to the bench, and then we fund at the bedside, we fund clinical trials. So today our research is certainly going to focus on colorectal cancer, and I'm really thrilled to be here. So I wanted to introduce my organization. If you'd like to find out more about us, you can find us at v.org. It would be remiss of me to say that if you watch ESPN, you hear a lot about us this week because of our support by ESPN and our 100% giving pledge, which is something we're all quite proud of. So it is a real honor to be here and to speak at this inaugural event. I think this is wonderful, and I'm excited about this global cancer movement and thrilled that we are united as leaders and people who are researchers, who are clinicians and advocates and patients. We must absolutely challenge the status quo in colorectal cancer. So thank you, OncoDaily. I think you are an absolutely wonderful organization. And thank you to the sponsors who are helping us to think about these important issues. So the title of my talk is around equity. I think equity matters a lot when we think about cancer research in general. And we've heard some really stark things today around colorectal cancer. I think specifically from my esteemed colleagues, we've heard that colorectal cancer is the third most common cancer worldwide, and the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths. And that we know that looking ahead, that the global burden of colorectal cancer is really expected to increase significantly. And this is certainly challenging. We have significant projections of new deaths, so 3.2 million by 2040, and 1 new cases rather, and then 1.6 million deaths. I mean, these are rises that I think are bear significant consideration. So despite the advances, the tremendous advances that we've heard discussed this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are, the 5-year survival rate remains really strikingly low. And so at the V Foundation, we are really committed to improving these numbers through funding innovative research across the platform that I just shared with you. So across from preventing colorectal cancer all the way to palliative care, and then through that same interception at the scientific space. So through funding basic or developmental science, through funding research that moves from through that early developmental stage to research in animal models, and then all the way to clinical trials. And so today I want to spotlight really groundbreaking research done by researchers who are funded by the V Foundation, who I think are advancing equity and innovation and really hope for patients with colorectal cancer. I think that when I think about cancer in general, cancer absolutely doesn't discriminate, but I think that access to things like prevention and treatment and research really does. Disparities remain disparities in outcome rather remain significant, and they remain significant across socioeconomic and racial and geographic lines. And so at the V Foundation, our aim is that equity isn't just a focus, but it's really a principle in everything we do. And so to me, at the core, equity in research means funding ideas that tackle really unique challenges that are faced by underserved populations. And I think this is vital in colorectal cancer, and we've heard that throughout today's presentations. And we want to think about where disparities in outcomes by race and, we know that in socioeconomic status and access to care, all of those persist. Equity also means investing in ideas that others might overlook. And so these would be other funding agencies. These are novel technologies, untested hypotheses, and approaches that are aimed at specific genetic or environmental risk. And so I'd like to introduce to you just a few. So this is literally a tip of the iceberg, but a few of the researchers that really embody this commitment. So the first is Dr. Charles Rogers. Dr. Rogers is at the Huntsman Institute in Utah, and his research focuses on addressing disparities in colorectal cancer screening. He is really a leader in this space because he's addressing glaring disparities in colorectal cancer screening, particularly among African Americans who are 20% more likely to develop the disease and 40% more likely to die from it. Through community-based interventions, Dr. Rogers is breaking down barriers to access, such as mistrust that we have in the healthcare system, things like cost, and things like a lack of culturally relevant education. Dr. Rogers' work really demonstrates how tailored interventions can save lives, one community at a time. And so again, I'm just going to give you kind of a taste of some of these V Foundation researchers, but I'm putting their contact universities on these slides in hopes that if there's something that piques your interest, you might reach out to them. The next researcher I wanted to highlight is Dr. Mayan Levy. Dr. Levy is at the Abraham Cancer Center and is exploring a really novel solution for patients with FAP. And this is a genetic condition, of course, that puts people at a higher risk of colorectal cancer. Instead of relying solely on really invasive procedures like colonoscopies or surgeries, her research focuses on beta hydroxybutyrate or BHP supplements. And these supplements really mimic the benefits of fasting or ketogenic diets. So she has a clinical trial launching this year, and I think that her work could offer a safe and what's really important, affordable and transformative option for higher risk individuals. You just heard a bit from Dr. Parika, who is at Mass General, and we fund this incredible researcher. She mentioned some of her work, and the V Foundation has funded her work in KRAS. So we know that KRAS mutations are notoriously difficult to target. Recent breakthroughs have led to really promising inhibitors, but these therapies face, I think, really two major challenges, just in general. I would say in general, we know that some patients just don't respond to KRAS inhibitors, and others can develop resistance after initial treatment. And she's tackling both questions. So aiming to develop combination strategies, and she mentioned some of this work, and then, also looking to improve and prolong responses. So absolutely incredible work, and I think could fundamentally change how we treat KRAS colorectal cancers. So you got just a taste a few moments before I presented, so please reach out to her. Also wanted to highlight Dr. Basil Arrayes, who is targeting cancer-associated fibroblasts. Dr. El Reyes is at the University of Alabama in Birmingham and is focused really on the microenvironment that's around colorectal cancer that allows and supports colorectal cancers thriving and, quite frankly, spreading. So his research is targeting these fibroblast cells and also the way that fibroblasts really drive resistance to treatment, and is testing a new drug that modifies these supportive cells, and I think is aiming to make standard treatment more effective, really less prone to failure. This is just incredible research. So certainly encourage you to reach out to Dr. El Reyes. Dr. Eberlin, so this is Olivia Eberlin, is at the Duncan Comprehensive Cancer Center in Houston. And this is just an absolutely incredible investigator. And I don't know if you've heard of her work, but it's in the surgical space. So we know that surgery remains a primary treatment for rectal cancer. One of the challenges is really ensuring that all of the tissue is removed at the surgical site. And this can be really, incredibly challenging for our surgical colleagues. And so her work is focused in refining a mass spec pen, which is an actual device that uses in real time, uses mass spectrometry to identify cancerous tissues during surgery. I've seen this. It's absolutely incredible. And this breakthrough could help surgeons to remove all cancer while preserving healthy tissue. And of course, this would reduce recurrence rates and improve quality of life. I met Dr. Eberlin recently at one of our events, and she invites you to come to her lab if you're in the area and want to see this in action. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So I gave you a taste of what the V Foundation did, and I specifically wanted to share some of the diversity of what we fund. And here I can brag a little bit. These researchers are part of what is a much larger story. The V Foundation has created what I think I can call a ripple effect in colorectal cancer research. We're not very old in the research space. We're in our 31st year, but I think we strike way outside our size. We funded 39 grants specifically focused in colorectal cancer that total $8.9 million. But those 39 grants have led to over 3,600 publications specifically focused in colorectal cancer that are really driving innovation forward. And this is so impressive to me. Over their careers, V Foundation funded researchers have leveraged our support to an additional $7.4 billion in additional funding and have contributed to 32 clinical trials. And so to me, it's not really just about the funding that we give, it's about the impact that our grantees go on to have. And at the core of really what we do and the message that I wanted to share with you is the power of equity. And equity in cancer research, this is what I shared at the beginning, means that funding and resources and the innovations benefit everyone, especially those that are impacted by disparities. Equity is more than fairness. It's about impact. One really powerful example of this is our Stu Scott Memorial Research Fund. This fund was created in honor of the legendary sportscaster, Stu Scott, who passed away from cancer and really championed inclusivity and equity. The fund focuses on addressing cancer disparities and funding researchers from underrepresented backgrounds in STEM. So I would love to just share with you a snapshot of some of the incredible progress that's been made in the first 10 years of Stu Scott funding from 2015 to 2024. This is one of my favorite quotes from Stu Scott. You can beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live, which I think can resonate with all of us here today. Okay, so if you look over the last 10 years of V Foundation funded cancer disparities research, over 18% of all V Foundation grants focused on cancer disparities or diverse populations. And over $40 million was invested in cancer disparities research. The Stu Scott Fund specifically supported 28 grants. So this was over $11 million for disparities research. We also funded underrepresented researchers in STEM, almost 13%, so 12.8% of our V Foundation funded researchers are underrepresented in STEM based on National Institutes of Health definitions. These researchers received over $30 million in grants, and the Stu Scott Fund contributed over $10 million to this total. And I think that this matters because tackling cancer disparities improves outcomes for all populations, and funding diverse researchers brings fresh perspectives and innovation to the fight against cancer. And finally, I want to end by just highlighting interception in cancer research, because focusing on detecting and stopping cancer before it can fully develop is critical to all of our missions, from identifying precancerous cells to targeting early stage tumors. The approaches, many of which have been really beautifully presented earlier today and will continue to be presented throughout this wonderful conference, are pivotal to saving lives. Research on cancer interception and detection improves early outcomes and reduces mortality. And I think that investments in more precise, less invasive screening methods are critical. And we've really prioritized this innovative approach at the V Foundation. So specifically in colorectal cancer, this has been a key focus in interception research, as early detection can vastly improve, of course, survival rates. Our grantees have made significant strides in understanding and preventing this disease. Some of our key findings, and I had to be really careful to not be here all day, but just to say, so lamivudine was shown by a V Foundation grantee to stop disease progression in some metastatic colorectal cancer patients. We know from a V Foundation grantee that socioeconomic factors influence early detection rates, with household wealth playing a major role, that genetic markers like STING and interferon beta predict responses to immunotherapy, that disparities exist in access to robotic surgery for colorectal cancer, and that finally that circadian rhythm disturbances may drive the rise of colorectal cancer in young adults. So the distribution of what we find is really incredible. So what about the path forward? So at the V Foundation, our mission is victory over cancer, and equity and innovation are really a foundation of that journey. I think that by investing in groundbreaking research and diverse scientists, we're building a future where no one's left behind in the fight against cancer. And I just want to end by saying that colorectal cancer doesn't discriminate, but I think outcomes still do. And I think that's why we have to continue to fund innovative and equity-driven research, like some of the projects, like all the projects I highlighted. I just was only able to highlight a few. But together, everyone who's at this conference and all the people that we represent who aren't here today, we can ensure that every cancer patient, regardless of their background or their genetics, really has access to the best science and the best care and the best chance for survival. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to OncoDaily on YouTube. Hit the bell icon to stay updated.